This is Marketing Uncomplicated. All right, welcome back to Uncomplicated, where we strip away the noise, the hype, and the over-engineered strategies and get to what actually works. I'm your host, Sasha Awa, and today we're driving into something that I believe is quietly sitting underneath almost every struggling transformation, every stalled tech investment, and every "why isn't this working" leadership conversation. We spend billions upgrading our technology. And for some who don't have the money to inject in, it's a little challenging. So we'll dive into that. But when was the last time we upgraded our people's ability to adapt it, especially with AI as it's growing forever and forever every day? My guest today is Barbara Wittmann, founder of Digital Wisdom Collective. Barbara has led complex transformations across industries and in challenging a big assumption that technology alone drives change. Her work centers on building what she calls a human operating system, and her pilot program has achieved up to 15 times ROI and significantly increased leadership promotions. Today, we're unpacking why digital transformation keeps failing, what collective intelligence actually means, and why upgrading your people should be a continuous line item in your IT budget. Barbara, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you.
Thanks for having me. That sounds like we're going to have a great conversation here.
Yeah. So let's go back to the core problem, and let's start here with
Mhm.
we've all heard digital transformation, and it was a big buzzword a couple of years ago. And we've all invested in tools and we continue to invest. I remember I walked into a company that was a startup that had 56 different platforms that they were paying for, and they were probably using only 4% of them. Everybody
Whoa.
just starts to, as you're growing as a company, you're like, okay, $20, $15, or like,
Yeah.
150, 120. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm paying X amount of money a month and I don't know what I'm paying for because I'm not using it.
Mhm.
But most companies still struggle. What's actually going wrong here?
It is that we put the cart in front of the horse in a way, because we have all not really understood the problem we're trying to fix. So you can throw as much technology as you want onto a problem, but especially as a startup, if you are not clear what is actually the business model you want to support, and also what is the target operating model that actually needs to be running on technology, you're doomed. So
Yeah.
that's like a give and take kind of thing. And I understand it's evolving because you're a startup, but you have to look at both equations. So just by having technology, that's not going to make you better.
Yeah, no, I agree. Are companies are companies mistaking activity for transformation within them?
They are, and transformation to me is an entirely misunderstood term, because transforming really means you move from caterpillar to butterfly,
Yeah.
but in many cases they just put wheels on the caterpillar and they're like, "Yay, we've done it."
Yeah. What does tech cannot catalyze change alone really mean?
Technology is just one piece. So, especially in a startup or in a small business, the people really make the business. They are really driving the transformation. So, you cannot just singularly upgrade technology. You also have to upgrade your people because they
Mhm.
need to be on eye level with what technology can deliver.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So then what patterns have you repeatedly seen across organizations that stall?
So, the repeating pattern is that the IT spend is increased. And it's like, oh yeah, this is great. We have AI or some fancy technology, and that's going to fix everything. Um, and instead of really looking at what I call an ecosystem and look at everything that's there, not just look at how can it support me getting better, but also what do our clients need. Because if we were to talk to our clients more and really understand how they want us to evolve, that would fix a whole lot of issues.
So it's a human system failure across the board then.
It's a human system failure, and transformation in essence is upgrading the experience and the experience for either the employee or the client. And we always have to keep that in mind.
Why do you think that there is such a rush to is it because companies don't want to fall behind and they're wanting to keep up with the Joneses, so to say, as it relates to tech. And then they're just onboarding different types of technology using 10, 15, 20% of it because, maybe they don't necessarily need the Rolls Royce of X technology and they could have done very well with the Honda.
It's fear of missing out is one thing, that, especially in AI, hey, everyone else is doing it, so we better keep up and we gotta clip along. The other thing, and that's a common failure, and I even, found myself tapping into this. It's like, oh, but we're going to grow into this.
Yeah.
We got to
Yes.
buy something a couple of sizes bigger. It's like buying clothes for your heavily growing kid. It's like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
let's take 2 pant sizes bigger. You're going to grow into it.
Yeah.
And that growing into it really adds up to a pretty hefty amount.
Yes. But can I challenge that for a minute? Because um let's say for email systems, would you still then have somebody start in a smaller platform and then migrate off like a year later? Or would you, if you know that nobody, I mean, everybody has a projection in terms of where their business is going. You could be
Yeah.
sidetracked and there could be bumps along the way. But
Mhm.
my question back to you: are there some instances where buying the two sizes bigger actually work for them based on planning?
Yep,
We hope.
yeah, could be. And again, it comes back to how clear is the strategy where you want to shoot to, and how clear is your target operating model aligned with, where you want to go.
Yes.
Um, and so to me, it's a lot about how does that fit into the full picture. So I think a big issue that's happening is, we are looking at one thing. We got to send out an email. Oh, we need an email system,
Yeah.
but we got to take a step back and kind of see what else do we want to achieve, and then also how does the system I pick integrate with other things I have,
Yeah.
um, and how is that going to make my life easier going forward.
I agree.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. So let's break it down in terms of, what is your human operating system.
Mhm.
Talk to me a little bit about how the ecosystem works end to end. What does it look like?
Yeah.
How does one jump into it?
Yeah. So essentially, I'm looking at three pieces of infrastructure. One is the technology infrastructure, and that is for the most part known by companies, or at least somewhat. But as you said when we started, a lot of people just click on subscribe, and then you have like a whole rooster of things.
Yeah.
So it's really understanding what do you have. That's one piece, and not just systems, but what is the data that we're pushing around. And then I look at what I call wayfinding infrastructure, and that is, simply put, how do we orient in our business and within our technology? And there it comes to: do we understand our core processes? Do we have a common language as a glossary? Do we know how decisions are made? Do we know who makes them?
Yeah.
And then we have the human infrastructure, and that really is the people that are operating it all. And do they have the right mindset? Meaning, do they have a growth mindset, or are they like, super um, put in a box in their head?
Yeah.
And also, how do they collaborate and play together? And these three things are held together by a common set of values. And that is basically what is driving and supporting the organization.
Now, I've worked across, large enterprise companies and also come into, some tech startups, and, everybody's wearing multiple hats within a tech startup. Sometimes you will have your CTO
Mhm.
as a hire, but I always felt that technology was a little, let's say, disjointed, which you
Yeah.
obviously have seen yourself in terms of, who's really managing it, who's really, responsible for it. If it's a marketing tech piece, is it marketing? Is this leadership? Is it culture? Is it learning systems? Like, how are you reshuffling and re-optimizing the definition of how technology sits within companies, whether enterprise and startup? And maybe it's the same set of like processes, it's just a varying of degrees because of the size of the company.
It's exactly the same thing, and size doesn't really matter,
Yeah.
because at this point, where we are in the world, it's basically part of our company DNA, and it's regardless if it's a small company or a large company. The advantage of a small company is, or a startup, that they can build their structures around this DNA. But what the startups do as a common error, they kind of have it sitting on the sidelines and like, oh yeah, we're going to get to it when we get to it. So everyone makes decisions. The HR guy is in a pickle and he picks a system, and then the ops guy needs something for planning and they pick
Yeah.
something. So it really is about installing, I want to call it discipline, from the very start. And somebody needs to hold the strings together. And if you don't have an IT guy, it's got to be the founder.
Yeah, because if an ops guy is buying into a platform to manage operations, but then it also has a marketing component, and then marketing goes
Mm-hmm.
out and buys another platform to do that job that could have been in the same platform, they're
Yeah.
almost double dipping and purchasing into a variety of different platforms because the two aren't communicating with each other.
Yeah,
And it seems like the
exactly.
root of everything in life is a lack of communication.
No, it totally is true, and I call it the peanut butter and jelly equation.
Yeah.
It's as simple as it sounds, but you have your business processes and you have your technology, and if you don't have anything in the middle, it's not going to stick,
Yeah.
and it's going to make eating it pretty bad. So what's your peanut butter and jelly, and
What's
there's got
what's
to.
the equivalent to that in Germany?
Oh, we don't do peanut butter and
I
jelly.
know. What would you guys do in equivalence to that?
It's maybe the apple strudel of things. So we have
Yeah.
we have stuff rolled up,
Yes.
which is actually a more holistic way of thinking.
Yes. I
Yeah.
love it. Um, so what does upgrading collective intelligence actually mean in practical terms?
That means first and foremost that we are all on the same terms, that we all understand the same things,
Yeah.
and that we have no assumptions that are in the room and not spoken about. Um, and especially if you are a small business and a startup, boy, can you go wrong if you're just sitting in a meeting and nodding and thinking, "Oh yeah, I think I know what they mean." Right?
Yeah.
It's all about being curious and asking questions.
Yeah.
So instilling that early is super important. It's also a way of how we listen when others talk, um, and also a way of reading the room.
Hmm.
What is going on here? Something is up, and just name it and be bold about it. And it's got a lot to do about how we show up as a leader. So essentially about our own mindset and how we see ourselves and how we stand in our strengths. And that informs collective intelligence. If
Hmm.
I'm getting out of my own way as much as I can, that's when the magic happens. Because if I'm thinking deep down, oh my God, I better not say anything because no one ever listened to me in my life, or, well, I've tried that 10 times, it never worked. It's getting clear of all these things and be able to really tap into what's going on.
Hmm. Hmm. Going back to, the positioning of technology, because my follow-up question was going to be, if a CEO was listening right now, what would be the first thing that they what would be the first thing that they would look to audit to develop this process out in a better manner? But is it really the CEO that's going to be at the helm of managing all of this? Or, so it's a two-part question, really. I mean, who do we find to be, for lack of a better term, the octopus head that has its tentacles in different departments that is ensuring that everything is, kosher? And then what is really the first thing that we would look to audit?
Hmm. And that is a really interesting question because it depends on the company size.
Yeah.
So if you're a startup or a small company, I would say the CEO is it because they need to, oversee everything that's growing. If it's a larger company, it would be the IT lead or the CIO. But they need to also be empowered to, you know, wear that hat, to be that octopus in the organization, essentially. But they need to have players in each department that can basically ping pong, That's what I call ecosystem stewards. So you got to have people that have been upgraded in each department that this octopus figure can actually dip into.
Yeah.
So how do you get it started? I would say the simplest thing is you got to have an overview of what's in your garage. You know, what kind of stuff do you have?
Yeah.
So make that clear. Ask the people in the individual departments to list it. No blame, no shame. It's more about, you know, getting an understanding of what we have and then really taking a step back and saying, hey, you know, is the process how we are buying software, is that right? You know, or do we need to centralize that? I would highly suggest that. Um, and do we really need all of this?
Yeah. Yeah. So if we were to strip all of it away, what behaviors need upgrading? I mean, is it decision making speed? Is it cross-functional collaboration? Psychological safety, the continuous learning aspect of things, or just digital fluency? I mean, what are those sort of categories within that?
Well, it's all of that. Um,
Okay.
you know, yes, it's a yes and. So digital fluency to me is a little bit of a loaded thing
Yeah.
because it applies the wrong things. You know, understanding technology and how it works, that's one piece. But it really is, how do you bring all these things together? Yes, we need all these skills. We need adaptive agency. We need judgment. We need system thinking. Um, but the the real skill is, how do we tie it all together and then use it all in one box? And that needs practice. That needs practicing and upgrading on a continuous basis, like what we would do with an IT system. So, like a server, you have standard upgrade patterns twice a year, maybe every quarter, you upgrade, but then you would never deploy something before you've tested it.
Yeah.
And with humans, we think we just, you know, drop the new skill and then it's like, oh, yay, now you go. You know, you went to a communication class. You know, why aren't
Yeah.
you performing better? So, what I offer with the Digital Wisdom Collective is really the test and upgrade sandbox where people can come and go out of their echo chamber of the organization and they can be amongst other industry leaders, different companies, and they can jointly, alongside a set, you know, decision making and problem solving pattern, they can go and crunch a couple of real issues they have.
Hmm. Hmm. Would someone like you pair, let's say, for example, there is a company that comes in and installs a bunch of tech. Would you
Mm-hmm.
say that you are complementary to that person to ensure that, while the systems are being upgraded, while new technology is being brought in, the human component doesn't get missed?
That is one angle where I would come in, but ideally, I come in more of an audit function to start with and say,
Okay.
hey, you know, what do you guys have in place? So I'm basically supporting either the CEO or the existing IT person and say, hey, you know, do we have any blind spots? You know, given your growth pattern of the company, what do you need to look for?
Yeah.
And
Um,
uh, and
Go
from
ahead.
there, I would say, hey, and this is what you need to upgrade on the human side.
Yeah. I think it's so fascinating. I mean, technology is really what runs the company, across
Mm,
the board. If you strip that away, I mean, it's just going back to pen and paper and I don't know, maybe, uh, you know, actually walking to somebody's office and having a conversation. But at
yeah.
the end of the day, it is what makes the company go around, and how we connect with each other, and how everything really functions across the board. But
Yeah.
from the standpoint of that missing piece is the human component of, well, we still, and even with the birth of, and it's not necessarily the birth of AI, but with the explosion, I should say, of AI, because AI
Mhm.
has always been around in its capacity, and now it's just getting louder. But that human component is still going to be part of our life, at least for 5, 6, 7 years from now, in terms of
Mhm.
managing these different types of systems. And your positioning in terms of how companies continue and will continue to survive and thrive is super key, specifically in the age of AI, is what I'm really feeling
Mhm.
and gathering, just based
Yeah.
on everything that you do. Because while it was already complex, it's getting more complex.
Oh, it is getting, I mean, it's getting crazy.
Yeah.
We have not been able to fathom complexity before and had a hard time, but we were faking it real well. And now it's really showing us where we have gaps, and the gaps are big.
Yeah. Yeah. Huge. You mentioned your pilot achieved up to 15 times ROI, which is
Mm.
huge. How do you measure that ROI from a collective intelligence standpoint?
It's a very simple measure, and it's IT spend and consulting spend.
Yeah.
And from the companies I've worked with, on average, they have saved about 20% either on IT or consulting spend for, you know, decluttering their stack or not using as much outside help because the people within the company were able to play nicer together and actually figure out great ideas alone.
Yeah, that's that I love that piece because I mean in essence it's what really changed though from the spectrum. Was it behavioral? Was it operational? Was it all of it?
It was all of it, and it
Yeah.
what I do takes the fear away from the whole transformation thing because everyone says, well, you got to transform as an organization. What I'm saying is you just got to transform the right people and then change ripples.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I target the people in the middle of the organization. So what happens there, because the people in the middle of the organization are the ones that cannot delegate complexity anymore. So if the CEO says, hey, I want to have that new email marketing system, he just kicks it down the ladder, and maybe two or three in the hierarchy do the same, but then it lands into somebody's lap who needs to do something about it. But these people usually don't have a voice, or they've tried to say something two or three times and then they just got shut down.
Yeah.
So if you empower them to give them a voice, you actually install a two-way communication. And you have basically the help from the middle to make the right decisions.
Yeah. What surprised you the most when stepping into this? And I mean, I love the data component of things, but now that you've been working across the board for years, I mean, there must be a through line that just keeps showing up, like constant.
The through line is that it's much easier for companies to spend money on tech or consulting. That's a no brainer. But to invest into their own people and how to do things, that is still a stretch for many. Usually, I'm brought in still, and I wanted to get out of this when something happens. When the AI pilot cost a ton of money, and now it's kind of stuck.
Yeah.
It's like, well, where do we go from here? And I'm like, well, people, you could have had this so much easier, and just being a little more proactive. Um, but it's like, well, why would we do that?
Yeah. Do you feel that along that, what are other barriers, when you come in to really get companies from the point of where they are to, which is the goal of why you come in?
hmm Well, I can tell you that the people in the middle are never the barrier. They
Okay.
are absolutely excited. They're
Because
like,
they're in
oh
the
my,
weeds.
they are totally in the weeds, and they're like, oh my God, finally, there is a place
Somebody
that can
understands.
help me, and somebody that understands. Um, it's more the people, above in the line that are like, well, but we can fix that in house. So it's more a misalignment between the HR component and everything else that's happening in the organization. So, yeah, it shows me straight away when I have these discussions what's going on. I can pinpoint pretty quickly of what the dynamic is.
What is the biggest barrier? Is it budget, or is it just fear of let's not fix something that's not broken in their eyes?
It's the let's not fix something that's not broken, and it's also, which budget pot do you belong in? Is it a learning and development, or is it an IT budget?
Yeah.
And I would shoot for the IT budget, and I really think that also HR is jumping a little too short to only plan one-off trainings.
Yeah.
So they really need to team up with IT and plan in a budget line for human infrastructure.
Yeah. So it should be really spread across from the human infrastructure. It's really HR that really pulls out of the IT budget to ensure, well,
Yeah,
we're going to be bringing in all of these different platforms. We need to ensure that our systems are connected to our people.
absolutely. And I would say there should be a rule of thumb going around to say, hey, if you have 15 million in IT budget, you got to spend 10% at a minimum on your people.
Yeah. So I guess let's create a little bit of a case study. If we have a company that is a 50-person company, what are
Mhm.
three things they can do tomorrow to strengthen their human operation system? So weekly reflection, cross-functional, learning loops.
So the one piece would be for the CEO to start with it and say, yeah, I want to have a player in the middle that I can start having conversations with. So that's the first realization, to say, and it can be a one-on-one, maybe a once a month conversation, and then find that person in the middle. And that is usually not the loudest person in the room. That's not the me, look all the cool things I've done.
Yeah.
I would look for somebody where everyone gravitates to when things go sideways. Somebody that naturally has trust from people. And I would ask that person to join a conversation, maybe have a lunch meeting once a month and really start listening without being reactive and just kind of take it in.
Yeah.
That is a big eye opener. And then I would ask the IT person to really come up with a list of what are the applications we have? And can you draw me an overview picture that fits on a PowerPoint? That's a challenge.
Yeah.
With the core systems and how they are connected.
Yeah.
Because like with any good business idea, if you cannot draw it on the back of a napkin, ain't no good.
Yeah. Yeah. What has been the craziest case study of you walking into a company where it was like an absolute atrocity mess? And it was, if we're pointing out a visual, think of a ball of string that's just completely jammed up, and then you come in and that line just smoothens out, or a wrinkle that gets ironed out type thing. What surprised you the most? I mean, what was the major pinpoint to really iron out that wrinkle, and what barriers did you have to jump over to really
Mm.
get to that point?
I constantly get amazed by people on the ground and how innovative they are, um, and how much they know. We look in the wrong corners because we always look at the IT guys, but I got the biggest input to solve issues from business people that were thinking that they have nothing to contribute because they are not IT. So that is something that always surprises me, and that's always the biggest effect when I come into a messy situation like that, to really hear what they have to say. And it's not bringing everyone into a room, it's really going around and having one-on-one conversations and really kind of gauging. And the other piece that always surprises me is who is sponsoring these initiatives, because you would think that it's got to be the CEO. Sometimes it's not, and sometimes it is the CFO or the head of strategy.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there are a lot of people that who have an opinion and have a voice, who don't necessarily voice it throughout the process, and who are actually the ones that are using it. To your point, you don't get a barrier from the folks in the middle, because they're the ones pushing, they're the ones
Mm-hmm.
interacting with the technology. But then it's like, at the helm of C-suite, it's cost, it's how long is this going to take, what is it going to disrupt, how is it going to hurt our go-to market, is it going to affect marketing monthly revenue, a flow, like what is it, just
Yeah,
what is it going to hurt? There's always this, let's take a step back and think about it. When you do take that step back while you're continuing to fly the plane, you will then supersede 10 times faster or 10 times more than where you're stagnating and sitting in the place that you're sitting in today.
absolutely. And the biggest piece to really untangle things is exactly that.
Yeah.
Because the common pattern I see in organizations is they get a task and they jump into action. They don't take the time to understand what is the problem they need to fix.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because of that, there's constant reworks, and because the direction is not clear, you're zigzagging around constantly, and that's where you burn people and energy and money and time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Barbara, being that you're sitting in Colorado and a long way away from Germany, talk to us a little bit about, your clients that sit overseas and your clients that sit in the US and the variation between the two.
Oh, it's a fascinating pattern. If you look at the appetite for growth. I mean, that is one big thing. Germans are cautious. We overplan. We want to do things right. It's always a very targeted measure, which sometimes is a hindrance because we overplan things and we don't move. So that's one piece that I would see for the Germans. For the US side, God, if you guys have goals, you really have outrageous goals.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but then it's like, okay, so except of believing in unicorns, how do we get there?
Yeah.
Um, so I think the healthy thing would be somewhere in the middle. There's nothing wrong with outrageous goals and really thriving for something that is hard to achieve. But then you also got to face reality, because as a startup, you don't want to burn out people, and they leave ship after a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one piece. The other piece is failure culture. Germans or Europeans not so good, right? You want to be perfect. You never want to disappoint. And oh my God, if as an entrepreneur you don't fail, because that would be a total spot of shame for the family. Over here, the more you fail, the more valuable you get.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah. That could toggle on to so many other different conversations as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I always describe it as the Germans are the over planners, and oh my God, let's rethink it for the 100th time.
Yeah.
And then in America is the Scotch tape and bubble gum. It's like, oh yeah, let's just build it somehow.
Yeah.
Um, so I really appreciate the two different ways, and I think a little bit of in the middle is not bad.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Barbara, I loved talking to you, and I think technology is just a piece of the future and has always been. But I think it's almost where you sit at the helm of what is happening with technology and AI. It's like you've really primed yourself in a position to not have AI take over, and it's this component of we're still here. AI isn't gonna completely take over us, and we're still gonna have to manage a lot of
Yeah.
what's coming in through the pipeline. So that's an amazing position to be in today. And it's just so interesting, and the intricacies of technology and the support system that really becomes the nucleus of any
Yeah.
company, to either thrive or survive. So I think you're doing some great things across the board.
Thank you.
So before I let you go, we like to do something fun where we do a rapid fire closing. And
Oh
we
boy.
usually ask, a one myth, one word, and one habit. So whatever comes to mind, just shoot away. One myth
Okay.
about digital transformation.
It fixes everything.
Yeah. One word that defines great leadership today.
Wisdom.
I like that. One habit leaders should start immediately.
Taking a step back, taking a breath.
Oh, I don't think they do it enough.
Respond, don't react.
Yeah. Yeah, some really great answers there. Barbara, it's been wonderful to have you on. We really appreciate it, and thank you so much. Everything is going to be linked below so people can get in contact and learn more about you. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much.